Welcome back to Silk Warrant. Today in this story is about the day my mother-in-law threw me out, then came begging at my door.
She handed me a garbage bag and told me I had until noon. That was Dorothy, my husband's mother, the woman whose guest bedroom I had been sleeping in for 7 months. The bag smelled like the laundry detergent she used on her own clothes, lavender, with something sharper underneath. She had ironed the crease into it. I stood there holding it and thought, she has no idea what I already know. There was a manila folder sitting in my one unpacked box. I had never told anyone it existed. The trap had started long before that morning. It began about 2 years earlier, the day my husband Marcus and I moved into Dorothy's house on Clement Street. We were saving money. That was the plan. Marcus had just accepted a new job across the state, and moving had drained more of our savings than we expected. Dorothy offered us her spare rooms, and Marcus, who had never learned how to tell his mother no, accepted before I could fully think it through. She promised it would only be 6 months. Maybe 8. She smiled at me in the kitchen and said, "This is your home too, sweetheart, I mean that." While she spoke, she tapped 2 fingers against the counter twice, pause, then 2 more. At the time, it felt meaningless. Now I know better. I paid my share from the beginning, half the groceries, utilities. Extra money Dorothy called fair household contributions. I never argued about money. I kept spreadsheets for everything anyway. It helped me feel organized, safe. What I couldn't organize was Dorothy herself. The way she moved things around the house whenever Marcus wasn't home. The way she casually mentioned Marcus's ex-girlfriend at dinner because she had supposedly been such a talented cook. The way she described my career in contract law as reading papers. Marcus S. Sister Renee came every Sunday for dinner. Whenever Dorothy made one of her little comments, Renee would suddenly become fascinated with her plate or the window behind me. She never defended me, but she never fully joined in either. Months passed, 6 became 8, 8 became 11. Every time I suggested moving out, Dorothy found a reason we should stay longer. The housing market was unstable. The plumbing needed work. She needed help around the house. Marcus always agreed with her. "Maybe 1 more month," he'd say, and because I loved him, I let it happen. One morning, 7 months after moving in, Dorothy looked down into her coffee and said quietly, "You can't really understand a family until you've lived inside one for a while. Some people take longer than others." Marcus refilled his cup and said nothing. I remember thinking, she's right, I am learning. By month 13, Marcus left for a 6-week project assignment in Portland. He was excited about it. I kissed him goodbye at the front door and told him not to worry about me. At that point, I still believed I could survive that house alone. During the 2nd week after he left, Dorothy walked into the kitchen while I was making lunch. She leaned against the counter and said she'd been thinking. "You've been here a long time," she said, "and honestly, I need the rooms back. A friend from church needs somewhere to stay." This arrangement was always temporary. 2 fingers, pause, then 2 more, the tapping again. I asked her how long I had. 2 weeks, she answered calmly. That seems generous. She wasn't angry. She wasn't emotional. She had simply decided. I nodded and finished making my lunch. What Dorothy didn't know was this. The day we moved in, she'd handed us a 2-page house agreement. Most people would have skimmed it. I read contracts for a living. I read every line carefully. The wording inside that document mattered more than she realized, so I photographed it. Then I kept everything else too, every grocery receipt, every payment confirmation. Every transfer she requested, 13 months of records. I never planned to use any of it, but I kept it anyway. That night I called Marcus. "She's probably stressed," he told me. "Let me talk to her." An hour later he called back. He said Dorothy thought I had been difficult to live with, that maybe tensions had built up. That maybe moving out would actually be good for everyone. There was a long silence after he finished speaking, because he never asked if I was okay. He never asked if she was lying. He simply decided she probably had a point. I told him I'd start apartment hunting. I found a place 9 days later. A small apartment. 3rd floor, 3 miles from Marcus's office. It cost more than I wanted to spend, but it was mine. I signed the lease before telling anyone. When I informed Dorothy I'd be gone by the weekend, she almost looked disappointed. I think she expected tears, begging, drama. Instead, I packed quietly, systematically. The last thing I carried to my car was the unopened box with the folder inside it. On the morning I left, Dorothy stood in the kitchen doorway wearing her robe. "I hope you understand this wasn't personal," she said. I walked back inside one final time and picked up the folder from the side table. She barely looked at it. To her, it was just paperwork. She had no idea what was inside. I drove away before noon. The smell of lavender disappeared from my life after that. Marcus came home 2 weeks later. By then, I had painted my bedroom wall a soft gray color called evening fog. I'd bought myself the dining table I'd wanted for 3 years. For the first time in over a year, I slept without listening for footsteps outside my door. Marcus visited the apartment one evening. He stood in the living room and nodded slowly. "It's nice," he said. Then he told me Dorothy felt hurt that I'd left without a proper goodbye. He suggested dinner together, the three of us. To smooth things over, I looked at him carefully. "I'm not ready for that," I said. "She's my mother. I know who she is." He stayed another hour before leaving, not angry. Just suspended somewhere between his wife and his mother, exactly where he had always been. Months passed. Marcus and I slowly became more honest with each other. He stopped repeating Dorothy's opinions like they were weather forecasts we both had to obey. Then one Tuesday evening, Renee called me. Her voice sounded different. Lower, heavier. "I owe you an apology," she admitted. "I knew more than I pretended to. Looking away was easier." I didn't answer immediately. Then I thanked her for telling the truth. She explained that Dorothy's church friend hadn't stayed long. Apparently, living with Dorothy wasn't as pleasant as she claimed. Then came the plumbing disaster. Expensive repairs. Financial problems, bills Dorothy hadn't planned for. Renee sighed softly before saying, "She's going to ask Marcus for help, and eventually he's going to ask you." Of course. Everything was circling back. Dorothy called me herself that Sunday. Her voice sounded flatter than I'd ever heard it. "I was wondering if we could talk," she said carefully. "Marcus mentioned your apartment has extra space. Family helps family, after all." I let the silence sit for 3 full seconds before answering. Come Thursday, she arrived wearing her nicest blouse. I could feel her eyes measuring the apartment the second she walked inside. I made tea. We sat across from each other at my kitchen table. Then I placed the folder between us. She stared at it, then at me. I opened it carefully. 13 months of utility contributions, I said calmly. Grocery payments, transfer records. And your house agreement. Her fingers touched the table automatically. Twice, pause, then she stopped herself. For the first time since I'd met her, I watched Dorothy realize she no longer controlled the room. I continued speaking quietly. "You were right that it was your house. You were right that I was a guest. But you were wrong about what kind of guest. And you were very wrong about what someone in contract law might do after." Being handed a garbage bag and 2 weeks' notice, I made something clear to her then. I had no intention of suing her, no intention of filing anything. The folder wasn't revenge, it was simply evidence, a record of reality. Then I told her the one thing she truly hadn't expected. "I won't be offering you a room here. Not out of cruelty, not revenge, but because peace had finally entered my life and I intended to protect it." Dorothy looked down into her tea. "I see," she whispered. She finished drinking quietly, then set the cup down carefully with both hands as if the table beneath her might suddenly disappear. I walked her to the door. She stepped into the hallway and turned once, like she wanted to say something else. But she didn't. I closed the door gently behind her. The hallway smelled clean, empty, neutral. And for the first time in a very long time, that feeling belonged to me. Marcus and I are still together. Different now, more honest. After Dorothy left my apartment that evening, Marcus called her. Whatever they discussed stayed between them. I never asked, he never volunteered. Maybe that was for the best. Renee still texts me occasionally, not often. But when she does, she says exactly what she means. I appreciate honesty more than I used to. The folder still sits on a shelf in my apartment, not hidden away, not because I need it anymore. Because it reminds me that paying attention is not paranoia. Being quiet is not weakness. And sometimes the records you keep for yourself are the only records that tell the truth. I never felt victorious after Dorothy left. I felt balanced, like something crooked inside my life had finally been straightened by the smallest possible adjustment. The door she closed on me became the door I learned to build for myself. And sometimes I still wonder, if the people closest to us described who we are to a stranger, would they describe the real version of us? Or only the version that was easiest for them to live with?